This is Block 9, The Liberal Establishment, Part 1, What is the Liberal Establishment, with our definition. The rest of the year is going to concern this understanding of what the liberal establishment is, and then kind of the criticisms of it. First from the political left and then from the political right is how we're going to organize the rest of the year. But to understand kind of the heyday of the liberal establishment in the 60s and 70s, and then the assaults on it throughout the 70s and 80s, we have to have a working definition of what the liberal establishment is. The liberal establishment is a term that was given to the political, social, economic, and religious leadership of the nation, or the elite of the nation. And what the term kind of meant was a group of people that had quite a bit in common. They were primarily from the East Coast, but not necessarily. That your liberal establishment also kind of had a home away from home on the West Coast. Most of them had elite educations, Harvard and Yale, of course, primarily, but also other Ivy League type universities like that. They were trained in, the social sciences, psychology, sociology, economics, history. They had a grounding in the great works of Western civilization. They could all, quote Shakespeare and Milton and the Bible and things like that. They were mostly old-line Protestants, Episcopalians, Methodists, Presbyterians, but not necessarily. But religion for this group was becoming less and less important as time went on anyway. And they're going to start to become kind of, not anti-religious, but anti-people who were really serious about religion. They took religion as nothing too important necessarily in their lives. They might have observed the forms of religion, but they are not believers. They're not, well, they might be believers. They might be private believers, but they certainly don't wear religion on their sleeves. They were all Keynesians. Every one of them. Start to finish, top to bottom, Keynesianism was the only economic theory that was in evidence with this group of people. They were broadly tolerant. Jews, Catholics, and blacks could join, but not rule the establishment. There was plenty of Jews and Catholics, and even well-educated black Americans could be considered part of this liberal elite. They were broadly tolerant people. They imagined themselves to be very, very tolerant people. They prided themselves, if you will, on their broad tolerance, at least publicly. Once you had a drink in them or two, they might aver different opinions on blacks and Jews and Catholics and things like that. But they believed themselves to be tolerant. They wanted to believe that they were tolerant, and outwardly, they were. They started out as anti-communists, this liberal establishment, but the excesses of McCarthy and their own progressive leanings, many of them had flirted with, socialism or even communism when they were young, made them increasingly suspect of anti-communists. Many of them, as the years rolled on, liked to call themselves anti-communists. Not that they were pro-communists, they just didn't like the anti-communists necessarily either. As the years went on, they started to paint the United States and the Soviet Union on brushes of moral equivalency, that the United States and the Soviet Union were pretty much the same. But that didn't happen for quite a long time. So that's your liberal establishment. White, Protestant, Anglo-Saxon, elite educated, well-read, Keynesian to a T, broadly tolerant. The leadership of the United States in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And that's something you need to kind of, these are who these people are. They're Keynesians, they're broadly anti-communist, they see themselves as tolerant, they're pro-civil rights. This is the liberal establishment. They believe in American power to be exercised by them. They believe, obviously, that the country should be led by them, that they are the country's natural leaders, and they have been for a long time. Sometimes you'll see the acronym WASP, W-A-S-P, White Anglo-Saxon Protestants, kind of associated with this group of leadership in the post-war second half of the 20th century United States.